All right, so I have an easy way for you to record parts for your worship team that doesn't involve having to manually play the piano over every little part using Finale and Ableton. So let's get into it. All right, so we have Ableton already opened up, and what I've gone ahead and done is pulled in the file for the song that we're doing. So this one is The Dove by Carrie Job. All right, one other thing I've done is I've set the tempo. This was before I pulled the file in. That's important. Set the tempo of what the song is recorded in. You can look online and find that. Multitracks.com has that for most all of their songs. And then I've pulled this in. Now we're going to want to make sure that this is synced up with the tempo, because if you listen to this, if I turn the click on and play this, they're not together. So we want to get the one on the one, so on and so forth. So usually if there's a clear one somewhere close to the beginning here, I'll just use that. But I'll get over here close to it and zoom in. If you just click and hold on the whatever this thing is, the scroll bar up here, and you drag down, it'll let you zoom in really, really, really far, as far as you want, really. So I'm going to want to get it over here, right on the one, and then get that on a beat here on say 2, the second measure. So let's see what this sounds like. All right, so now we'll pull this back out. And in fact, if we want to do that, I don't want to do that. If we want to do that on the 3, we could, so that we get the intro part, that we don't cut anything off. But for the sake of this video, we're going to do it on the 2, just so that it starts on that 1. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes there's a slow fade intro that you want to leave into it, so you would pull that beat over a little bit. So now that we've got this set up correctly, we're going to go get the file from Finale. So we're going to head over to Praisecharts.com and search for this song, The Dove. If you come down here to expand to see what products they offer, you'll see right here the Finale piano vocal. So we're going to purchase that. And again, it's $15, but it saves you a ton of time, and it will, to me, it's worth the $15 you have to spend on the song. So I'm going to go ahead and download this, and we'll be back. All right, so we have downloaded the files, and we're going to go with the original key. A lot of times this will come in a couple different keys. We're just going to go with the original one, which is in A flat. So we're going to open this up in Finale. All right, so once this opens in Finale, we can get rid of this little toolbar. We want to get it into just the 3 parts. We use 3 parts, but you can do it in 4 parts, and you can only split it into 4 parts here in Finale. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go up to Document and go to Manage Parts. Now you'll see this open up. We're going to want to expand this this window, and the way we do that, you can click on this little Edit Part definition so we can kind of see all this. Now we're going to want to create 2 new parts, one for the alto soprano, one for the tenor and the bass, because as you see, each of these all have the SATB in them, and we want to single those out. So we're going to select new part, or actually I'm going to do 2 of them, and then we'll select one and edit the part name. We'll put TB for tenor bass, and then we'll go to this other one we created, edit part name, alto. We'll do SA for soprano alto. Hit OK, and you'll see these over here. Now, in each of these, we don't have anything in them as of yet, as you can see in this middle window. If you select the other ones, you'll see what's included in them. So we'll go to soprano alto first, and we want to go over to the list of things over here that we can add, and we want to select the soprano and the alto part, and we'll hit Add to Part. There you go. That's done. Then we'll go do the same thing for the tenor and the bass. We've selected the linked parts here, and then we add the available instrument of tenor bass. TB stands for tenor bass. Add that part, and we're done. We'll hit OK. Now, to get this to show those parts, we go back to Document and hit Edit Part, and then we'll select, let's say for this first one, soprano alto. When we do that, it's going to change and only show the soprano alto part, which is what we want so that we can export it over to Ableton, and that is our part, or 2 parts. So we will come into File and hit Export and export MIDI file, because we're actually going to export the MIDI file over to Ableton, because that's what Ableton can read. And I'll show you how we can manipulate that and make adjustments as we need in Ableton. So we'll export the MIDI file, save it as whatever, you can name it whatever. I'll put the Dove SA MIDI is what I'll call that, and hit save. You can just leave this. You don't have to change anything for that. Hit OK. We'll do the same thing with the tenor bass. We'll go back to Document, Edit Part, Tenor Bass. This one will look a little bit different. It always does. I'm not sure why. It doesn't really put the lyrics in there, but it still works out fine. We'll export this MIDI file as well. The Dove, tenor bass, MIDI. Save. Okay, and we are done in Finale. Very simple. Now we will go back over to Ableton, and we're going to want to have 3 MIDI files, one for tenor, one for bass, and one for soprano, one for alto, and one for tenor. So we'll just copy and paste one of these. We'll rename these. Let's say alto, soprano, tenor. And I'll typically change that to red, soprano to this kind of light blue, and tenor yellow. There's not a right or wrong way to do that. That's just the colors I typically go with. All right, so now we're going to pull these MIDI files in. We'll find them in our, wherever we saved them out. Vocal parts, I keep them under a folder called vocal parts. And then I'm on the alto up here, so I'm going to pull the soprano alto one in here. Okay. It says import tempo and time signature. We do not want to do that because we don't want it to mess up what we've already done in Ableton, so we don't want to import that. So we'll hit no for that. And then we're going to do the same thing on the tenor. We will drag the tenor file in here. We do not want to do that. Okay. So I don't do anything on the soprano yet because I'm going to get it all lined up first, and then I'll copy the one, since this is soprano alto, I'll copy that one down. So we're going to want to find where this starts and where the parts start. Typically it will have the melody line on here. So I'm just going to get lined up first. It may be actually perfectly lined up. Oh, one last thing I forgot to do. You will not hear this unless we add an instrument to it. So we'll come over here to Instruments, Instrument Rack. Apparently a Finale quit. Instrument Rack. Go under Piano and Keys, and we'll just grab the grand piano. We want to drag that over onto the MIDI file here, MIDI channel here, and we'll do that for all 3 channels. The reason we do this is because we can get the MIDI coming in, but if we don't tell it what sound we want, it won't produce any sound. It sounded like this was already synced up and lined up, but we'll listen. All right, we're going to have to pull that up a little bit because we can't hear it. But if we solo it, we can. Yeah. So double click on this. We will select somewhere in here, hit Command A to select all of them, and pull the volume up on every single one of them. So we'll hear this a little bit better. And I'll also bring this up to 6 and bring the volume of the track down maybe 6. Perfect. So much easier than recording the piano. About 5 minutes we've done that. All right, so for our parts, we don't want, we're recording it for the team, so we don't want whoever's leading the song, we're not putting that part in there. We're waiting until we have actual, the group and the team come in together. So we're going to cut all this off. All of this is still just the lead vocal. So is this part. It looks like that's where it comes in. We can see that by the tenor part down here. So we'll scoot this over. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can get it a little bit closer. And I'm going to cut off. Whoops. All right, so here's where everything comes in. So we're going to go ahead with the tenor and do the same thing. Double click here, select down here, Command A, bring up all of the notes. We don't really care about dynamics. Those are the dynamics, like how hard they were hit, how loud they are. Don't really care about that for this because, again, it's for vocal parts. So we do that. We're going to bring this up 6 so we can hear it a little bit better. All that's going to sing together. All right. So, as you know, we have soprano and soprano, alto in this one file, tenor and bass in this other file. We don't want soprano and alto together because we want to be able to separate those. And we also don't want tenor and bass together because we're not using bass, but we also don't, if you were using bass, you don't want to have them on the same channel. So there is a plugin, and the name of it is Midi Monopoly. Okay, you'll see it right here, Midi Monopoly. I'll put a link in to where you can download that. It's free. Very, very beneficial thing here. So we're going to go over to the alto channel, and we're going to drop that on the alto channel. Okay. We're actually going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and copy this down here since we know it's lined up. Sometimes you do have to line it up because one thing in Finale or in Ableton when you import MIDI, if there are any repeat bars or anything like that, the MIDI doesn't follow that. Like the MIDI just follows it straight through with the notes. It just takes the notes and exports them as MIDI. So if there is a repeat or a section that says, that it does it 8 times, like 8 bars of the intro, but it doesn't actually list out all 8 bars, then the MIDI is not going to pick up on that. So that's where you do have to do a little bit of editing within Ableton to get it lined up and stuff. Thankfully, this intro lined up fine. We'll probably see later on in the song that there may be some repeats and stuff that we might just have to splice at a certain point and copy over. But again, it's simple. Much easier than recording it out and trying to get it all timed out right. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we've got to separate the alto and soprano parts and the soprano and the tenor and the bass parts because they're all in one file at this point, and they're going to stay in one file. But the way we do this, I've copied the alto down. I'm just going to rename that to soprano so we know and change the color. Oh well. All right, so we've dropped this MIDI Monopoly on the file. And what we want to do for alto, as we know, it's going to be the top note, right? So as we get here to the part where it splits, sorry, not the top note, the bottom note, we want to only take the bottom line. So this MIDI Monopoly, we can come in here and hit priority high. I'll try to do it again. Low note priority on this. So you hear, I'm going to solo this. Now you hear a little bit of like clips with it with the high note. The way you fix this is on the grand piano instrument, we're just going to change the attack on it. That'll fix that. So now we're just taking the one note. If I turn this off, here we got the 2, the soprano and the alto. But turning that on fixes that problem, takes that out. You don't have to go in and delete all those notes, which takes a very long time because I did it before I found this plugin. So again, very simple, very easy. We're going to do the same thing with soprano. We're going to add MIDI Monopoly, except this time we do want the high note. I'll get that right this time. We want the high note. It's probably going to do the same little clipping thing. Let's solo that. Yep. So So we're going to change the attack up to about 50%, 60%. Cool. Now we've got the soprano line. All right, we're going to do the same thing with tenor. Bring down the Midi Monopoly, this one, because tenor's above bass. We want the high note again on this one. And we'll just go ahead and change that attack so that we don't get that problem. All right, so there you have it. That is how you get parts from Finale into Ableton. Now, I'm going to go through this song. It does look like that maybe it's repeated a couple things. And so what you will have to do is you'll listen through and you'll have to, like right here, it looks like I may have to cut and move everything over, just looking at the waveforms, because this song does go out through here. And I'm assuming that some of these broken down parts are just the lead vocal. So I will have to go in, splice this up, and move things down. But that's just the basic general way that you would get files or get recordings for your worship team parts by using Finale and Ableton in conjunction with one another. And it's so awesome that Praisecharts.com actually gives you the Finale file. All right, so you can see I did have to do some splicing, some copying, pasting, so on and so forth throughout this file. But honestly, I did it in about 10 minutes. And, from start to finish, this whole process, takes maybe 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the max, which is a lot quicker than playing it out, having to go back and fix mistakes, fix areas where we hit the wrong chord notes, all that kind of stuff. And so what we would do from here is we would select on all these channels actually, but we would select the first one, hold down Shift, select the last one, right click and hit consolidate so that it makes it all one file, just cleans things up and leaves less room for weird things happening. So we'll consolidate all of those just because I like them to look normal. I'll pull that in as well. So the way we export these is, again, I usually have all of these at 6, and I will go back and double check to make sure all of these dynamic sensitivity lines here, I don't know what they're called. The word is slipping me right now, but all of these are all the way up so that we have it as loud as it can go. So we'll just come in here and select all. Let's Control A, just pull up, just to make sure all of these. And if you select all of them like this and you just grab one and pull it up, it'll do all of them. See, if I'm move just one, it moves all of them because they're all selected. All right, so now that we have that done, the way we export these is we're just going to mute the ones we don't want. For this first file, I'm going to do the alto. So I've got the alto unmuted or on, and the other two off. And then, of course, the main file. Now, I will go in and listen. It's not as prominent. You don't want in the loud parts for the track to overbear the notes as people are listening to it. So a lot of times I'll pull this even down, this track file down even further. That note is very dominant and people can learn their parts. So I will select all of this and hit File, Export. And then we're going to export this. Let's say the Dove, alto. All right, so you can see that we have that file here, and this is what it would sound like. And we'll create a file for the soprano and tenor and upload those to Planning Center or whatever program you use. And that is how you record parts using Praisecharts, Finale, and Ableton in conjunction with one another. Hope this helps. Hope it makes life a little easier for you.